Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Ortiz, a reporter at TheWrap. We are so excited to have you here for our 2021 Emmy Award screening of GIRLS5EVA and ZOEY'S Extraordinary Playlist. Going to be joined today by some truly extraordinary people from GIRLS5EVA. We will have showrunner and executive producer Meredith Scardino and executive producer and composer Jeff Richmond from ZOEY'S Extraordinary Playlist. We have showrunner and executive producer Austin Winsberg, executive music producer Harvey Mason Jr., and music supervisor Jen Ross. I'm out of breath saying all of their amazing titles. Before we bring them in, first we're going to be showing you the trailers, and then we're going to jump into a conversation with our panelists. So to our audience watching, please make sure to participate in the chat. Tell us what you like about the shows, your favorite songs. Tell us where you're joining in from, because we want to know. Now, before we introduce our guests, here are the trailers of GIRLS5EVA and ZOEY'S Extraordinary Playlist.
Why GIRLS5EVA?
Because we're gonna be famous 5EVA.
They were a thing for a second back around 99, 2000.
I was a baby in 99, but I like it. It's old school. Makes me think of my mom's boobies.
Oh God. GIRLS5EVA booked a gig.
Reunion!
I don't know if we should do this.
Don't say that! Was that good? I've tried out for the Housewives like 8 times. Cool. Does Whitney know about this?
Let's go, ladies. I have places to be.
On the runway, to the runway. Fashion life.
What the hell are you doing? Take that scarf off. You want to get sucked into an engine?
Sorry, sir.
We don't need Larry anymore.
Try to sound horny.
The messages in our songs are bad.
Jailbait, great at sex, but it's our first time.
I'm gonna write us a hit. An anthem to things that aren't perfect but are still great.
That's like us.
We're gonna have the biggest comeback in pop music history. Everybody sing from your diaphragm.
Okay, which one?
Steal the spotlight, steal the show, get ready.
Remember these ladies? GIRLS5EVA!
I just did mandatory sensitivity training. See, I air honk now. Growing, learning, ally.
4 grown ladies trying to be pop stars again. Strap in.
GIRLS5EVA.
Too early. Oh, wow. That was Sprite.
Steal the spotlight, steal the show, get ready. Get set.
Do you want to tell me what happened?
I heard people singing to me.
We can tell, darling.
Huge Broadway number.
You're still glowing, you're still growing, you're still...
So the powers are back. You're interesting again. It is your first day back at work.
Look at this.
Welcome back.
What's up, Zoe?
Hi.
Since you were gone, I've had to take over.
1, 2, 3.
I'm happy that my grief brought you guys together.
We are evolved men who won't get into some war over you.
Big black boots, long brown hair. She's so sweet with her get back set.
Can you excuse me for a second?
Zoe?
Zoe.
Zoe?
Stop it! I can't take it anymore! It's not normal! I feel like there's something wrong with me. I don't know how to exist in the world anymore.
You can't outrun your grief as much as you might want to.
As tough as it is to lose your father, life went on. I don't mean to be giving you this tough love, but we all have our stuff, Zoe. You can do this.
Feeling 100 things at once. Starting to feel like I'm not a kid anymore. You will always be my kid. And I'm very proud of you.
Zoe?
I thought maybe you'd want to see this.
Just in case you need to be reminded, I love you. I know there's no roadmap, but what I do know is that you have to move on.
You have to make choices in life. Keep moving forward.
Welcome back. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Girls5EVA's Meredith Scardino and Jeff Richmond. Hello.
Hey.
And for Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, we have Austin Winsberg.
Hello.
Harvey Mason Jr. and Jen Ross. Hello, everyone. How are we feeling today?
Great.
Feeling good. Feeling good.
Good.
Feel better.
I mean, as you can tell, we're going to be really low energy here today.
Let's go.
Obviously, I am a huge fan of both shows that we are talking about today. I want to start off directing to Austin and Meredith here because Girls5EVA and Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist are both, they're very, very different shows, but they're both musical series, which I just think are woefully needed these days. So why choose to tell your stories this way? Why tell them through music? And Meredith, I'll start with you.
Well, one of the reasons, so I came up with this idea because I noticed there were all these boy and girl groups reuniting, and it just like all these light bulbs went off in my head. And I thought, oh, this is so interesting to set a show in the present day, but also have flashbacks to the late 90s, which is when I came of age. And I was kind of like, but you know, music, can I pull off music? I don't know. But the thing that made me feel like in some ways feel confident that I could attempt this was the fact that I had worked with Jeff Richmond on Kimmy Schmidt, and he worked on 30 Rock, and he's just the best composer. And so I just thought, well, he'll always be the safety net. And then, you know, and the way I kind of approached music in the show was in a sense, I initially was like, well, we'll feature it almost the way that you see sketch comedy on 30 Rock, where you don't always feature it, but you live a little bit in it every now and then. But then when we got this amazing cast, it was kind of like, no, what are we doing? Like, let's feature it more. And writing these songs was so fun that we were just like, let's live in these songs more. And then we ended up writing an album, and it just kind of went from there.
Spiraled out of control in the very best way.
But I also think thematically, this show is really at its core, it's about like 4 women in their 40s that are a little bit like unsure about where they are in life and not really feeling so much, you know, a little numb to the world. And to me, there's nothing that evokes emotion in life more than music. And it's just like the perfect analogy for like awakening these women. And it is them singing and like finding their voice. So that was another thing that I loved about the premise.
Well, and there, you know, talking about evoking emotions, Austin, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist is a very personal story for you. It's very much based on things that have happened in your life. So with Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, it's literally people's innermost thoughts and feelings. So why, with something so personal, why choose to go that angle with it and make it like a superpower for Zoe?
Yeah, well, that part's not personal. I can't hear people's inner songs, which would be fun, I feel like. You know, I've been wanting to do a musical on TV for years. I think I sold 3 or 4 other musical TV projects before Zoe's. I had a musical on Broadway some years ago. So I was a theater major in college. So I've always lived in that theater musical space, and I've always been kind of trying to crack the code on how do you do a musical TV show. Then I had this experience with my father, where my father passed away from a very rare neurological disease. And for the last 6 months that my dad was alive, he couldn't speak, he couldn't move. The only thing he could move was a finger in one hand. And one day I just had this idea in my head, what if the way that my dad saw the world those last 6 months that he was alive was through big musical numbers? And somehow when I had that idea in my head, this thing that had been a deeply sad tragedy in my family, suddenly sparked at least a little bit of joy or a little bit of hope, or that felt like a hopeful idea in my head. And then I thought, well, what if our main character, who desperately wanted to talk to her father and understand what he was going through, could see him sing and dance, and then maybe she could experience the world through song and dance. And then it was just about taking a lot of these musical ideas that I've always loved and the rules of musical theater, and, you know, making sure that each song advances plot or reveals character or tells something emotionally. And it felt like an interesting way to tell a musical series while still being personal to my own story.
Well, so that being said, now that you've seen it play out, you've got this idea out of your head, and Zoe's experiencing the world this way. Do you think you would want to experience the world in big musical numbers?
I think every now and then it would be fun, but as Zoe struggles with it too, I think it would be a big burden. I mean, to know what everybody's feeling at any given moment and to have to take on the emotionality of what that could be. I think, as Meredith said, it's like people break into song because it creates a certain level of feeling or emotion. So to have to be burdened with everybody else's emotions and problems, and for Zoe having to help those people with those problems, I think it would be very challenging.
I think it'd be very fun. You kidding me? Walking around, listening to music all day, seeing people dance and sing. Oh, come on. It's like heaven over here. I love it.
I mean, there's pros and cons to it, I think.
Well, Harvey, what song is in your head, right? Like if we were to see you break out in your innermost heart song right now, what song would you be breaking out into?
Probably something by Village People or some kind of party celebration TGIF song. I would be dancing. I say, thank God it's Friday. I don't know what the title would be, but it'd be fun. It'd be a lot of energy, celebratory, feel good kind of day.
This is why I love Harvey, because when I'm Eeyore and depressed, he just comes into me with that energy.
Well, and I like that you chose the Village People, because I got to actually photograph a concert of theirs once, and it's really impossible to not be joyful around the Village People. It's just not, I don't think it's humanly possible.
It's a lot of love and good energy.
Well, and in that kind of vein of love and good energy, I'll toss it back to Meredith. It's got to be cathartic in a way to do these, especially with GIRLS5EVA, this like goofy, just like ridiculous in the best ways kind of storylines, especially after the year that we just had. I mean, it's got to feel good in some way to bring that kind of just like nonsense to the screen.
I have to say, like, yes. And even just like seeing responses from people where people say like they've had a really hard day or even a hard week or month or whatever this year. And it was like a nice pocket of joy for them. It's just so incredibly rewarding. But also we were all, it was, you know, anyone who's shot during the pandemic knows it presents an incredible amount of challenges, but we were also like, so grateful to go to work and have like a sense of normalcy when everyone else, like we all felt so fortunate that we could have that experience that was kind of relatively comforting to be on set and be around other people when, you know, everybody else was just stuck and trapped in amber. And so we were just like pinching ourselves all the time that we, you know, despite all the, I mean, I was a new showrunner getting to know a new cast through a mask and a shield, and like they didn't even see my face really until I took a picture with them at the end, like when we were shooting episode 8, and they're like, "Oh my God, your mouth is huge." I was like, I know I'm a mouth-based person, but yeah, but it was a gift to be able to make something during a time that was. We all felt it. We all felt it on a daily basis.
That's got to be the most like trial by fire thing for a first-time showrunner, is how well do you really know your crew? Because you have to get to know these people with only half their faces.
Well, luckily we knew the crew incredibly well, because I got to piggyback on, you know, we used a lot of the same crew from Kimmy Schmidt that I worked on the whole series. And then a lot of them, Tina Fey, Robert Carlock, and Jeff Richmond found for 30 Rock. So it was just like, that was also kind of a nice like lifeline to just feel like, okay, we know Griffin's on sound, we know John Inwood's doing, you know, cinematography, and so that when there were new elements brought in, like all the testing, all the PPE, and new actors and new crew, part of the new crew, it didn't feel as so overwhelming, because you were kind of there with some family, which was nice.
That sounds very nice. Now, Jen, I want to toss to you, because between both of these shows, pop music really is the through line, and that's a lot of fun. It's not necessarily all musical theater, even though, you know, ZOEY'S did open season 2 with Hello Dolly, which was incredible. You've gotten some seriously big names though throughout two seasons of ZOEY'S so far. What do those conversations go like when you're trying to obtain the rights and you're trying to say, I want to use your song? What's your elevator pitch?
You know, it's different for each one because you've got to keep in mind that you're talking about using somebody else's art in a different way. We're using somebody else's words and, you know, what somebody else created to tell somebody else's story, a different character's heart song, a different emotion. So it's really about explaining where it's coming from. And again, you know, this not only does this show have a very honest personal connection to history, right? But to go back to, especially this last year of COVID, but even before that, what it comes down to is I really just talk about it's in a connection that we all have and why music really empowers us and changes our lives, right? What we're asking for is something more than just a needle drop in the background. What we're having a conversation about is we want to take your song because it means something to people, that it heals people. Mm-hmm. And we've all had that moment, right? Like none of us would be here if we didn't jump on our bed and sing a song at some point or sing it in the shower or, you know, let it loose in the car, right? And it's really about tapping into that. And that's why that song is important and being able to explain what the scene use is, what the character's going through. And we've had a lot of luck with some very big names because of that, because we're talking on a little bit of a deeper level. It's not just needle drop. It's not just something that's filling space. It's telling a story.
Well, so in that sense, I mean, big names. We had Taylor Swift this season. We've had the Beatles. We've had so many. Has there been a point though where Austin comes to you and he's like, I want this one? You're like, no, it's not going to happen.
Jen never says that. She never allows those words to come out of her mouth. I know this about her.
We never say no. No, but like, listen, to be fair, I mean, there are sometimes there are things that are challenging, but this is one of the things that I love about Austin. We have a great team, but Austin's an amazing team captain because even when you have a moment where it's like, oh, I don't know, the first words he always says is, I believe in us. And you can't really fight with I believe in us. Like you hear I believe in us and you're like, okay, we're going to do it.
I'm going to steal that.
It's a good motivator. You know, there's a certain swath of artists that I've learned over the last 2 years with Jen. I shouldn't reveal our secrets, but there's a certain swath of artists where there's a handful where it's like, this one is going to be really tough. And so there have been certain artists that we just haven't chased yet because of knowing the time challenges or the amount of producers on a record or something like that that might just make it too difficult to get in the time frame that we have. And so we do have a wish list of probably at least 10 artists that I can think of that we haven't gone after yet that I'd like to try to take some other big swings with at some point.
I mean, if you want to put it out here now, we can all manifest for you together.
You want me to give you one or two right now? I'll give you a few.
Give me one or two right now.
Bruno Mars is one we talk about constantly that we haven't been able to go after yet. U2 is another big one. Adele, Lady Gaga, Madonna. Jen, you want to throw any others on there? Play.
Jen's about to have a meltdown right now. Like, oh no, what are you doing to me?
You got to swing for the fences. I believe in us. I believe in ZOEY'S getting those artists.
Thank you.
Harvey, now, once it goes through Austin, who says, I want these artists, and he says, I believe in us, and Jen goes and she gets them, then it goes to you because you kind of have to tweak these songs to be the ZOEY'S style. Sometimes it's very much like true to the original song, and sometimes you do something like a EDM trap version of Pure Imagination, and it's something totally.
Sorry about that.
Don't have to apologize. It was great. And then you had like a ballad of I Want to Dance with Somebody. So how do you decide which ones to tweak? Because these are iconic songs. Is there any part of you that's like, oh, this makes me nervous?
Pretty much every day in the studio, that is the sentiment. Oh, this makes me nervous. But it goes back to the I believe in us, sentiment. It's Austin has a vision for these songs and for the show. And I really want to facilitate what he sees and hears in his mind. So we spend time talking about it. Just like in this moment of the show, this is what the characters are feeling. This is what the emotional impact should be of the music. This is kind of the goal of the scene. And we do that along with the choreographer, Mandy Moore, Austin, and myself. And we just talk it through. We figure it out. How close do we want to be to the original? How far do we need to go to stretch the feel of it? And what's the intention behind the song? And we just go for it. But my goal is always to be respectful of the original and hopefully make people who either performed it or wrote it or produced it proud and think we did it justice in a new version.
One song I want to call out specifically from back in season 1, because I'm pretty sure that in your earlier years that you worked directly in making this song, Destiny's Child, Say My Name. And
yeah, that was a fun one. There have been quite a few songs that I wrote or produced or worked on or was involved in some capacity on the show, and that's always fun. We did one that I co-produced that was a Whitney Houston song that was a tough song to recreate, actually. And Austin and I talked a little bit about it because I worked with Whitney 2 days before she passed on her last record. So when I have to go back and recreate those songs, it did bring up some memories that were, I guess, emotional ammunition for where we were going with the show at that time. But it was tough.
Well, in a totally different sense, over on GIRLS5EVA, Jeff, with your music that you co-wrote these songs with Meredith, it is all original music and it is all exceedingly catchy. I mean, like that end hook to the GIRLS5EVA theme song, that GIRLS5EVA, great singer. It's been in my head. It's an earworm and it will not leave. So I just, for one, I guess got to say great job on that.
Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Do you have one that you are most proud of in these songs? Because they really are some absolutely bananas songs.
Well, in the Canada work that we've done for GIRLS5EVA, I do like the theme song. I do like that opening thing, and I like it because it was the first song that we wrote, Meredith and I, and Meredith had it on the page. And as she said, we didn't quite know exactly how songs were going to be used. We knew there were going to be original songs that we were going to write, and they were going to come from this meta world of the world that we were creating in this music business, but we didn't know exactly how much we were going to create. So when that song came around, and I remember saying, "Oh God, I'm of an age, and I got to be sure that I can like crank out this pop stuff so it sounds okay and it sounds correctly." So I kind of took on myself to write this song so we would have it, and it was fun, And I think it was one of the cool things about writing songs from that period is like, oh, the tools are already there. There's already this roadmap of what to do. The people that wrote songs in the 90s or 2000s or whenever, they left you this great, when you're trying to do a pastiche or a knockoff, they left you what it should kind of sound like. So that's often not the hardest part of the job, but I think maybe the trickier part is to take that, get it to sound like what it's supposed to sound like in an authentic way, using all the tools that you have available, but then maybe taking it a little step further to make it something that you want to listen to a little bit more, something that feels like you've brought a little something new to it. And I think that that particular song has a few little things in that. Another thing I would like to say, the way these two shows are so different, how they use this song, because I love ZOEY'S, because I, like Austin, I am a music theater kid. That's what I did. That's what I grew up. That's the kind of songs I have been writing for years and years and years and years. And I think I just want to congratulate all you, Austin, all you guys, because you did find the story device to crack how to do it on television in a way that was compelling. It was in fun to watch and built and formulaic in a way that is so appropriate. So my hat's off to you guys. Something that I've always wanted to do in what we've been doing. But Meredith and I have a different animal over here. So.
Well, and while we're calling out specific songs, also New York Lonely Boy, on behalf of only children everywhere, that one really hit home. I mean, I'm not in New York, so I'm in Chicago. I've been to New York exactly once in my life, but there are certain experiences that only children experience. And I'm curious, are either you or Meredith, are either of you only children? How did that one come about?
Well, this one is, well, this song, I have two sisters, older sisters, but there's a pretty big gap between me and my next sister. And so in some ways I had my parents' attention in a similar way to an only child, but I have one son. I have been for years calling him a New York Lonely Boy because people are like, oh, are you going to have another one? I'm like, oh, I'm in my 40s. Like, no, I'm not. And I'm happy with him. And he's just going to be a New York Lonely Boy. And those kids, they're a little wise beyond their years. They go to bistros with their parents and have adult conversations. And so it was, I've been calling him that for years before the show. And then when we were breaking stories and we were trying to figure out, what would getting this group back together do to Dawn's home life? Well, maybe she had plans to have a second kid because, they're Italians and, she's Italian and living in Queens. And that's just probably what you do. And So it felt like the perfect opportunity to talk about, that being a pejorative at first for her, and her being worried that her kid's going to come out strange because he's a New York lonely boy. And then only to have that, all of her fears be laid to rest when she meets John Slattery on the street. And the reason why I knew John Slattery had one son is because I've been living in New York for 20 years. I see him I don't know him, but now I've met him, but I see him in the city with this son who's in his 20s, and they look like they have the best relationship. Like I remember seeing them on Father's Day walking around Soho together and being like, that's what I want. And so then it was just like, okay, well, we wrote this story, and then I kind of swung for the fences to say, like, let's just put John Slattery in it. Tina knows him. Maybe he'll do it. And then he said yes. And his whole family, his wife, Talia, and his son, Harry, came, and they were all in the show. And then a few weeks later, I was walking by a nice pedicure place in Tribeca, and I saw them all getting pedicures next to each other. I was like, exactly. But
They're
that
nice
song,
people.
but that song is very personal for that reason. And also something that, another writer in the room also has a New York lonely boy, Lauren Gerganis, and she very much connects to it. And all the parents in the city, whether you're an only child or you have an only child. So I feel like it felt fertile for all of us to kind of sink our teeth into and write about. And then we were looking for, it was Jeff's song. Jeff wrote this amazing composition to the song, to the lyrics, and his voice was on the track for a really long time. And we could have released it. It was beautiful. But we had a little budget. So we were like, should we go out to somebody to cover this? And in the script I had written, it was just Paul Simon voice. And so we asked Sarah Bareilles, and she was like, oh, the Milk Carton Kids would be perfect. And Jeff and I listened to them. And we were like, oh my God, we gotta get them. And then they said yes. And it's one of those things, one of those songs that it came out as amazing as I could have ever hoped. Like I was just thrilled.
Another thing about too is that in getting the Milk Carton Kids in, I bet everybody knows this experience. And unlike theater, television moves at such it's just moving quickly. It's all the time, and it's nothing but deadlines. And I just remember, we were actually doing final mixes and realized, oh, we're a bunch of idiots. Like we've never done this before. Like, oh, we have to mix this song into the episode, and we don't even have the real people on it yet. And it was, we asked them, they turned it over in like 3 or 4 days in the middle of COVID, and that's a trick. Just to get people, just to produce music in COVID times was a challenge, And I know what I did is I brought in a person, Hunan Rubenstein, who has his own music studio, and I knew that if I could somehow protect this one box, this one facility, I could get people in and out. He plays so many instruments that between the two of us, or 3 or 4 people, we could produce these tracks that we needed. I don't know how you guys did it, because you guys have so many fantastic pre-recorded stuff going. Like, how they get it all done?
Well, first of all, for any of this musical stuff, and kudos to you guys too. Like the degree of difficulty of this stuff is so hard.
It is,
especially. I mean, I have questions for you guys about like how accurate you try to make it sound like the originals versus putting other stuff on it to make it sound like. I mean, we could nerd out about that stuff, but. But we have 8 days to shoot an episode of ZOEY'S. And most Broadway musicals take like 8 years to get to Broadway. And
but I tell everybody, yeah.
And so every step of the way, I mean, we've trained the executives and the note givers that they have to approve of the songs at outline stage, because we have to get the song process going. And then Mandy needs some time. Sometimes Mandy, our choreographer, will only have a couple days with her skeleton crew to work on a dance before she's got 1 or 2 rehearsals with the actors before it's got to go up. So it's just like camp. Like when everybody's not shooting, they're either in the recording booth or in the dance studio, and it's all just this crazy accelerated pace. And inevitably at a certain point in the season, it all bottlenecks. And then for like 3 weeks, it's just like we look like corpses. And it's like, how did we do it? It's the same thing with Jen and Harvey. I mean, at any given time, Harvey and I are juggling 8 songs, 10 songs, 12 songs, and it's like, and the train always has to keep moving because it can never slow down. So it's always like, you know, it's amazing to me that we're able to get what we can get with the limited amount of time that we do have. And one of our tricks is that we shoot a lot of oneers, so it's all just one shot. And I love that visually, and I also love that it shows more of the song and dance. But it also, just from a production standpoint, if you're well enough rehearsed, you can actually shoot that quicker than having to shoot it from 10 different angles.
Absolutely. Yeah. The oneer is it is the thing to do those, to wash off a whole dance sequence like that with a steady cam and just moving it around or whatever. And it gives your show such a cool look. It's very fluid, and your musical numbers are dreamy. You know, they look like they're in somebody's mind the way they move, but they also have kind of this traditional sense of the choreography is so cool, and the way people take over shots in their choreography, as opposed to the camera finding them. Often it's the people finding the camera and finding the lens. Yeah, I appreciate it as a work. You know, something on that same kind of theater thing and television thing. We have such great performers. We have, you know, Sarah and Renee, who come from Sarah's come from every background. So she has done Broadway, and Renee, of course, is Broadway, and they come with a, you know, particular sense that they like to rehearse and learn it and know it and sit at the piano and have the notes, and then get in a room for as many hours as they can to do the dance and the choreography. And then Paul Appel and Busy Phillips come from a very television based, where you're kind of rehearsing it on as you're shooting. And so it was fun to find what this chemistry was, and everybody learning how to teach it and move it forward. But that was a long explanation about
no, it's the same
something
thing
that nobody cared about.
It's the same thing on Zoe's too. I mean, people come with we have Renee did Zoe's, by the way, and she was great.
She's great.
But people come from we have people who come from theater and Broadway backgrounds, and people come from TV, and people come with none of that background. And so part of it is like, how do you integrate everybody into it together, and how do you make it feel seamless? And part of that is the work that gets done with Harvey in the recording studio with the various degrees of vocal talent levels, and then with Mandy, where she really tries to work with everybody with their own individual bodies rather than trying to get them to do a move that she wants. It's more kind of working off of what they can do, and so you kind of find it all together.
And like this, though.
in 20 minutes.
In 20 minutes, yeah.
Right.
Well, you talk so casually about these oneers that happen on Zoe's, and they're not small oneers, Austin. I mean, you did American Pie as a one shot, and that's not a short song. You did Shake It Off as a one shot. So it's not like you can talk super casually about this, because it is a feat that you were pulling off.
Part of it was by design from the very early days, from the pilot talking about Zoe's, it was very important for me to see the dance. And sometimes I'll watch a movie or something where I'll feel like it's so edited to within an inch of its life, where it's just this hand here, this foot here. And it's like, I wanted to be able to see it. And maybe that's part of the theater thing too. Like I wanted Zoe to take in the performance, and I wanted the audience to be able to take in the performance too. And for me, that meant, how can we visually do that in an interesting way without having to overcut, or without having to just cover everything from a bunch of different ways and then find it in the editing room. So we try to never really find it in the editing room. We try to do it all by design. And we have an amazing Steadicam operator who is kind of part of the dance. And his name's Bradley Crosby, and he's built into the rehearsal process too. So, a lot of it's just, what'd you say?
No, I just said that's awesome.
We have to because some of them are so complicated, and they move around spaces and move around bodies so much. And a lot of it's the framing within it as we're figuring it out, that the more that it's just the benefit of rehearsal and time. And Mandy and I are also trying, because we've done like 140 of these now or something, like we're also trying every number to challenge ourselves and be visually different and to put a conceit behind it. So it's never just somebody standing there dancing. And so that's just part of our creative desire and makeup, because it's also like, I also feel like with a big action movie or something where the CGI stops being impressive after like 3 minutes. I feel like with us, with our dances now, it's like, now what are you going to do for us? Prove yourself or something.
Right. It's like
Fast and Furious.
Sorry.
It's like Fast and Furious, where they had to have the car come out of the nose of the plane and land on the runway. Do you remember that?
Right. Now we have to go to outer space on Zoe to do an anti-gravitation dance.
I mean, there's some songs about oxygen, right? Like Breathe, 2 a.m., Just Breathe. That's something you can't, we can make it work. Zoe's in Space is, I think, an amazing
Space. That's season 3.
Now, obviously, in Zoe's, it is more pre-existing songs. You did get to do an original song in season 2. You got to do Crimson Love, which is so funny to me because it starts out and you're like, oh, this is a garage band bop. Like, this is great. And then it keeps going and you're like, oh no, go back. This is not. So Jen, my question for you is, when Austin and Harvey say, we're going to do an original song, does that take stress off of your plate? Are you like, yeah, go for it? That makes my job much easier.
I wish that it did. We had some S&P notes.
That was Austin's fault, not mine. That was Austin. That was all Austin.
That was a little stressful, but no. I mean, listen, again, that it's TV time frame, right? And this is the first time that we created something. So that was a process. Like that we had to learn that process. So where we have things down in terms of re-records, this was a whole new thing to explore. So we actually got started on this earlier than we do some of our other songs because we knew this was coming down the pipe. We probably started about a week, 2 weeks, maybe at best, earlier than we normally do, just because we knew we had to put in a little extra time because it was a new exploration we were going to go on.
Also, it was the first song I ever wrote, so I would have happily called Jeff and had him come in and done it instead. But because it was one of those specific things tonally. This is why you guys are so good at this stuff, like where the song had to sound like a real song. And because of the nature we were doing story-wise, where David, the brother, is in the band, you can't realize it has to sound like a sort of a nice love song for anybody, only to realize during the song that he's actually singing very uncomfortable things about his own sister. So it was like a real tonal comedic tightrope where it had to sort of sound and feel like a real song, but also accomplish something story-wise. So it was learning on the job for me too. This is the first time I ever did it.
Just based on these timelines that you guys are telling me about, I worry for your blood pressure. Are you all like feeling okay? Because this is a stressful job.
No,
I think we all got it. We're all, we know how to zen out. No, we don't. I'm stressed all the time. I'm stressed.
That's why you have that orchid. You just look at that orchid.
Which, by the way, it has not popped up.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty
it's
sure.
gotten closer.
It does seem like it's growing during this. It's weird.
I feel like
it's coming for him like a Venus flytrap.
Listen, any reason to sing Suddenly Seymour, and I'm fine. It's fine. It's great.
But it costs. It's not free anyway.
Well, so back to Crimson Love, just real quick. Harvey, you got to co-write that with Austin. It was his first time. Tell me truly, was he a good first-time song co-writer for you?
He was amazing, actually. The lyrics, first of all, absolutely cracked me up. When I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, Austin, this is so awkward. I was cringing. It's such a cringy song. And as you're singing it, and as we were producing it, every time I was like, I cannot wait to see them try and sing this with Zoe standing there in the background. But as far as the songwriter, Austin was great. He always knows how to deliver a message and tell a story. He's super entertaining. Even just me talking to him, I smile and laugh a lot. So it was great. We went back and forth on the lyrics a few times. I was playing around with different track ideas. Austin was giving me great guidance and feedback as to what he wanted to hear, what he thought would be kind of the good vibe for the song. And that's the thing I love about working with Austin is he's very collaborative. He also lets me go crazy sometimes, which I love. And he says, yeah, Harvey, just go. But a lot of times it's really specific and we talk a lot. He's got great ideas. He's a music lover, as am I. So we have a lot of references that we share about other songs or other writers or artists that we love. And so that was a great time for us to get a chance to work really closely together. So I loved it.
Was one of those times that he told you that you could go crazy? Was it pure imagination? Because it sticks with me.
Yeah, that was actually pretty strategically planned out, but there's definitely times when Austin's probably like sweating, wondering what I'm going to turn in.
Is that true, Austin?
Well, like Crimson Love is just a good example. It's like I wrote some stupid lyrics on a page, and then he takes that and turns that into something that sounds real and professional and like a real song. So it's like, I don't know how to do that. And so like Harvey just takes and elevates at every single turn. And even when we're talking about conceptually, this should sound like, I don't know, a Beastie Boys song, or this should sound like a Maroon 5 song or whatever it is, or can we get in the pocket of some sort of R&B thing here? He always pluses whatever that, goalpost idea is that we start with and turns it into something really amazing.
Well, so Meredith, you had a similar experience with Jeff, if I remember correctly, with Tiny Butt Forever.
Oh yeah, Tiny. Well, throughout this the season there's songs peppered throughout the whole season, and it got to the point, and songs that worked very hard on always, but always handing it to Jeff and being like, is this anything? And then him being like, I think, but only because I think I made it sound good. But anyway, and then it got to the point where we got Vanessa Williams to play this power agent that the women like vie for down in Tampa at AirPig, a radio conference, and we were like, oh well, we have Vanessa Williams, like she should sing. We have to have so it was like the night before, it was like the night before we were shooting, and I was just like, I gotta get her to sing somehow. And so I was looking at the scene that they were going to do the next day, and they do organically bring up, because Vanessa Williams' character goes, Nance, she goes, oh, were you're part of GIRLS5EVA, right? You guys had that song on the Blue Crush soundtrack. And then Gloria goes, yeah, TBF, Tiny Butts Forever. And then I was like, oh, maybe I could just quickly write Tiny Butts Forever, like a little chunk that they sing a cappella. And I couldn't figure out how to make anything rhyme, because it was episode 7 and I was exhausted, and it was probably like 2 a.m, and it was the night before the shoot. And I wrote down like the ideas that I just wrote, like TBF, Tiny Butts Forever, 2 silver dollar pancakes and jeans. And I was like, this will be what people like forever. And then I was like, Jeff, none of this rhymes. I don't think it scans. Is this anything? And then he just boopy boop. I don't know what he does. And and it sounds kind of like a TLC song. And I was like, well, no, I don't even have to scan or rhyme anything anymore.
No, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do any work anymore. You're very good, Meredith. But I do remember that getting that so late, and I knew that they needed it. They were going to shoot it the next morning, and it wasn't like we were going to lay down the track. They were just going to have to just sing it live on the floor. So I think I just did a voice memo. I said, like, Renee, here's your part. Tiny Butts, send it off. Send it to Vanessa, and knowing that they were also talented, and Vanessa so talented that they would just, and even Sarah, they're all just going to they're going to listen to that once and go out and sing that little bit, and they nailed it. Matter of fact, I remember there was a snowstorm. I got out there on the set late that day, and I had missed it. They said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's nothing."
It was good.
It was like nothing. It was great.
Meredith, had you written songs before? Because to me, it's like such a different skill set, and like a different.
It's weird, right? It's different
than normal writing.
I hadn't really written. I mean, I'd written songs within the world of Kimmy Schmidt. We would write Titus silly songs all the time, like when he was hallucinating during an audition, like Pinot Noir, and like his Trident Gum song where he's somehow in a fever dream. Like, so we wrote a lot of songs for that, but they were always like this little, really small. But it was always so fun. And so, like I said, so when I was approaching the show, I thought, well, okay, we'll just write the little fun parts, and then Jeff will make that work, and it won't be too daunting because it'll primarily be the scripted show and the jokes and all that. And then it was really once we got the cast, and then once I got a little bit more comfortable, myself and the writers, like just throwing out lyrics and looking at songs. And also, by the way, some songs are just like Watermelon Sugar 100 times in a row. So you're like, well, that's a little comforting that you don't have to like, the lyrics aren't.
We did Watermelon Sugar.
It's a great song, but it's also like lyrically.
It's Watermelon Sugar.
You're just like, yeah, lyrically, it's not the hardest thing for a writer.
Lyrics need very short.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
fair, it's
but it
not
was such a fun
experience.
experience.
It's watermelon sugar high.
True. 3 words. My bad. But yeah, then it turned out to be so fun. But it is a different, don't you think Austin is a different, you have to put your brain in a different place as a joke, like, because normally you're always thinking of the characters and story and making sure your jokes fit the character. But when you're in a song, I feel like you have to live more within the confines of the song and not over joke it, or else it takes you out of the song.
Yeah, well, this is what I was talking about with you guys, and like How much are you trying to sound exactly like the thing versus being like a slightly heightened or slightly spoofy version of that? And because everything is tone. I mean, we talk about tone constantly on Zoe's because we're always trying to balance the tone between comedy and drama and emotion and musical. And like, I think your guys' show has such a specific tone that you guys hit perfectly, which is like, it is the thing, but it's also a slightly elevated version of that thing in like a really great way. And that feels like that's all tone.
Yeah, I do think it is a little, it's a little, the dial's turned up a little, but we try to stay within the world of the dial without jumping off and writing a Weird Al song or something.
Yeah, I think that Meredith is right. Like that tone, and Austin, it is that tone thing. Like, well, we've got these songs that they are singing in this meta world. They're original, they're inappropriate lyric-wise, but perfect because they're kind of what the music industry would have put onto these people at that particular time when they're building what should be a globally recognized girl group at the time. So we were writing those songs to sound like that, giving them a little extra twist and edge sonically so that they sounded maybe a little more interesting in some ways. But then what we had also did was we tracked the story throughout the arc of the story of when Sarah Bareilles' character actually starts to find her own voice and she's going to start writing the songs. So we were actually tracking, well, this needs to sound tonally a little more like it's coming from Sarah. And so if we were doing something like the I'm Afraid song, which is her at the piano, that was a very collaborative thing. And then as we move closer towards the song that really arcs the season, which is the song 4 Stars, we all knew this is like a real Jen Ross thing. I knew that she had to write this. Like I knew that we talked, like Sarah needs to write this song. It should sound like it's coming from her. The audience is going to want and recognize that this is a song that should feel and sound like a Sarah Bareilles song because it's of that character's real voice. So we were kind of keeping track of that as the season went along. I can't believe we were keeping track of anything, to be honest, because we tripped into it with COVID. I swear to God, I said it was October, and I thought, this isn't really gonna happen, right? Jerry DeCanio, this isn't really gonna happen, But we did.
But it is one of those things. Yeah, Jeff's right about 4 Stars. Like we wanted, like I didn't feel, I mean, we were like, we have Sarah Bareilles. I mean, with Sarah, we were sort of like, even from go, when we first met with Sarah, it was always like, and if you want to, no pressure, you don't have to write a song for us. But if you want to, we would like welcome it because it just did feel like giving these women a song that the audience would root for their success. Cause it's like, you want to root for them and having Sarah Bareilles like embody the theme of like perfectly imperfect and put it into a song was just like, of course it's going to come out and be something that like does this after you've heard 100 jokes that are insane. So that was just such a gift that she was willing to write a song for us.
I think that's so funny because it's like we have Sarah Bareilles. If you want to, we would really, really like you to.
Bad at hinting. Tina's good at a slow play, like with no pressure. And then we were all hoping she would want to do it, and then eventually Jeff, I think, talked to her about it, and she was totally game. So.
Well, it worked out very, very well. I could talk shop and music with you guys all day. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time here. I will say both Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist and GIRLS5EVA had some real big twists at the end there. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but there is a twist in Zoe's, and there's a line that kind of hints to something that could happen in GIRLS5EVA. And I would love to see what happens with both of them. So well done on both of your seasons. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. Be sure, those of you in the audience, take advantage of our free trial to Wrap Pro so you can be the first to know about upcoming screenings like this one because they are all this much fun. I promise you. You can register for upcoming screenings, catch up on any past ones. So if you're not watching this one live and you're watching it, it really works out in your best interest. You can check all that out over at TheWrap.com, over in the screenings tab in the main navigation bar. Meredith, Harvey, Austin, Jen, Jeff, thank you guys so much. It has been a joy.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.